Hi everyone, my name is Emma Steele and I work for a charity called Whale and Dolphin Conservation. And I'm based here on Orkney where I help to run our Shorewatch project. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Shorewatch Citizen Science project and how you can get involved in watching out for whales, dolphins and porpoises around the coast of Orkney, and how in turn this effort-based data collection can allow us to better protect the species around our coastline. So firstly, I'll just talk a little bit about the charity that I work for, and that's Whale and Dolphin Conservation, or WDC for short. So we're a global charity and we are dedicated to the conservation and welfare of all whales, dolphins and porpoises, and these are known collectively as cetaceans. So we have offices here in the UK and also further afield in Argentina, the United States and Germany. And our vision at WDC is a world where every whale and dolphin is safe and free. And there are four key aspects to our work in protecting whales and dolphins and trying to reach that vision. And these are to end captivity, to stop whaling, to create healthy seas, and to prevent deaths in nets as well. And we do all of this work through a whole range of different activities, for example, through campaigning, through research, education, through our Adopt a Dolphin programme, and through different outreach, for example, the Shorewatch project and other engagement events as well. And we're also now working on an area of work which we call the green whale. So whales and dolphins have a really important role to play in combating climate change through sequestering carbon, and they're also really important for the overall health of the ocean ecosystem. So I'm just going to briefly explain how this works using the infographics in a little bit more detail. So whales feed at depth in the sea, and then when they come up to the surface to breathe, they do these really big poos, which then release lots and lots of nutrients, and these nutrients are really good for phytoplankton. Now phytoplankton is important because through photosynthesis it absorbs around 40% of carbon from the atmosphere, and these floating rainforests of phytoplankton produce half of the planet's oxygen, and then this whole process creates a thriving ocean habitat and helps also support fish populations as well. And another amazing aspect of how whales can help combat climate change is when they die, and we call this whale fall. So when a whale dies, their carcass will usually sink to the ocean floor, and carbon is then stored there for thousands of years. And then the whale carcasses at the ocean floor provide a vital food source and a home for up to 200 species as well. And because they are large and have long lifespans, whales can lock away carbon for a really long time. And they're also really ecosystem engineers for the ocean, and that's why it's really important that not only that we protect the populations that we have, but we allow them to thrive in our oceans as well. So we live in a really exciting part of the world in Orkney, and we can see up to 21 different species of whales and dolphins without even having to leave the UK, and also being able to spot them from land as well. So whales, dolphins and porpoises are all marine mammals, and they're also known collectively as cetaceans. And I'll talk a little bit more about the different species that we can see from Orkney's coastline a little bit later on. So I work on the Shorewatch Citizen Science programme, and for those of you who aren't quite sure what citizen science actually means, it's the involvement of community members, so people like you getting involved in collecting data, and then collectively that data can then be used to help organisations like ourselves protect those species that we really care about. So you might have heard of, for example, the big butterfly count, or the RSPB's Big Garden Bird Watch, and these are also examples of citizen science as well. So through our Shorewatch Citizen Science programme, what we do is we train up local volunteers to carry out these 10-minute surveys of the sea from specific locations, and that helps us monitor the presence and absence of cetaceans. And like I said, cetacean means any species of whale, dolphin or porpoise. And essentially, Shorewatch allows communities to get involved in conservation at a local level, and then that dedication of our volunteers across Scotland allows us to gather really good, robust scientific data, which can then be used to help us ensure the long-term future of cetaceans in our waters. Now, I just mentioned about conducting surveys from specific locations around the coast, and this map shows all of our current Shorewatch sites where local people spend time monitoring the sea and reporting their sightings and effort to us. Now, the reason we watch from these selected sites is so that the data that we collect is consistent and comparable. So with lots of effort by different people over the years, all using the exact same methodology, standing at the same spot, we also provide each Shorewatch site with the equipment, so binoculars, a monopod and the clip box, so you don't have to buy this yourself. But with all of our volunteers using the same methodology and the same equipment, surveying from these specific sites allows us to build up a really robust long-term data set as well, which is really, really useful when we want to protect the species that we're seeing from the coast. Now, the main aims of Shorewatch are for us to produce that really reliable data set so that our data can then be used for meaningful conservation management. And we provide full training to all of our volunteers on how to correctly identify different species of cetacean, and also all of our volunteers follow that exact same 10-minute methodology, watching out from one of these Shorewatch sites. And just zooming in on our site map, our sites on Orkney at the moment, we have one at Ness Point, one at Yesnaby, one down at the Broch of Gurness, one at the Gloop and one at Hawkshaw Head as well. So these are the sites that we're focusing our efforts to do those 10-minute surveys at the moment. So Shorewatch is slightly different to simply reporting your casual sightings around the coast, because we're also monitoring the effort. So we're also recording when there are no cetaceans present. So by recording watches, whether or not animals are sighted, we're then able to say how often a particular species occurs in a specific area. So rather than just saying we saw dolphins 62 times in 2020 around Orkney, we can actually monitor the frequency of sightings at each of our Shorewatch sites. So for example, one of our sites on the north coast of Scotland, we've got a very dedicated volunteer who watches out year round, and he doesn't see a lot throughout the year. However, he keeps watching out consistently, and then around September time he starts to record an increase in Harbour Porpoise sightings and also abundance, and that indicates that during the autumn that's a really important habitat for Harbour Porpoise. But without that consistent effort throughout the year, and without him recording no sightings, we wouldn't then be able to pinpoint September as significantly important in that area. And there are lots of different examples around our different Shorewatch sites for different species. And this then allows us to fund further research if it's necessary to find out more about why a species might be gathering at a specific spot at a specific time of year as well. So Orkney is such an amazing place to see cetaceans, and there really are important habitats for a number of different species. So the more robust data that we can collect helps us to then evidence those important hotspot areas to policymakers and developers, essentially helping us to protect whales and dolphins. And it's thanks to a generous grant from the National Lottery Heritage Fund that we've been able to expand our sites into the Northern Isles and set up these new Shorewatch sites around the Orkney coastline as well. And best of all, through Shorewatch, we help build a connection with people and cetaceans, and you can really increase your chances of seeing whales and dolphins around the coast of Orkney by doing these 10-minute Shorewatch surveys, where you're really fully concentrating on spotting what's out there in the water. So sometimes I'll turn up at my local Shorewatch site and I'll have a quick glance and think, I don't think there's really anything out there. And then I'll do a dedicated 10-minute Shorewatch survey where I'm really scanning, really looking for cues to spot cetaceans, and sometimes I'll spot Rizzo's dolphins or Harbour Porpoise, which is always really lovely to see. Now, if you're interested in getting involved and volunteering for Shorewatch in Orkney, the best thing to do is to sign up to one of our upcoming training sessions. Now, the trainings are online at the moment, and we cover how to identify different species and also how to carry out that 10-minute Shorewatch as well, so the Shorewatch methodology. And this is an opportunity to volunteer that is open to everyone. You don't need any previous experience or knowledge about whales and dolphins, and all of the equipment that you need to watch out is provided at each of our Shorewatch sites as well. And following the online training, we then organise a practical watching out session at your local site to go over that 10-minute methodology, and I'll be able to support you in person to carry out your first couple of Shorewatches and answer any questions that you might have. So our next online training session is on Thursday the 2nd of September, and I'll be putting in more dates in the calendar as well. So if you hear about it after, or you can't make the 2nd of September, do still get in touch and let us know that you're keen, and we can keep you up to date with future training sessions. So I've talked a little bit about how Shorewatch and how the collection of data can help us protect whales, dolphins and porpoises, and I just want to quickly illustrate that with one example, although there are so many to choose from. The picture you can see now is of a Risso's dolphin. Now Risso's dolphins are seen regularly in coastal waters around the Outer Hebrides, and we also do get sightings of Risso's around the north coast of Scotland, Orkney and Shetland as well. And our Shorewatch volunteers across on the Isle of Lewis spend a lot of time enjoying incredible sightings of Risso's from our watch spot, Chimpin Head, and Chimpin Head overlooks the Minke. So the team at WDC also head out to take photographs of Risso's dolphins across on Lewis, and over the years we've built up an ID catalogue. So each individual dolphin can be identified from the different scars and nicks on their dorsal fins. And this photo ID evidence that we've gathered shows that we're seeing the same individual dolphins every single year. And then the Shorewatch data that our volunteers collect throughout the year, so not just in the summertime when our researchers can go out and take pictures, that provides evidence that Risso's dolphins are seen all year round, and sometimes they're seen with calves and sometimes they're seen exhibiting important behaviours like feeding. And this data, so the photo ID data coupled with Shorewatch data was recently used to evidence that those waters are really important habitat for that population of Risso's dolphins. And we were therefore delighted last year when the Scottish Government finally designated the area as a marine protected area specifically for Risso's. So this is just one example and shows how important and useful the data that we collect through Shorewatch actually is. And we're also starting to build up an ID catalogue of Risso's dolphins for the north coast as well. So through that research on Risso's in the Outer Hebrides and the collection of those photo ID images, we've got a much better understanding of the population around the Minke than we did 10 years ago. And the example that I just explained really shows how valuable that this can be in protecting those species and populations. However, there's still many pieces of the jigsaw, the Risso's jigsaw, to put back together, and we're now expanding our photo ID research to determine other key habitats and populations, and as I said, building up a catalogue for Orkney and Shetland as well. So we're asking anyone with pictures of Risso's dolphins, either historical or recent pictures, to send them in to us so we can analyse them against our existing images in our catalogue, and if it's a new individual, it may also be included in an Orkney or Shetland catalogue. So full credit will be given if the images that you take are included in a photo ID catalogue, and we'll try to let you know if the dolphins you have spotted and sent in to us are resighted, or if any of them are known to us already. So if you do have any high-res images of Risso's dolphins, or you like to take pictures of dolphins and you're heading out to look for them, please do send us your images of Risso's dolphins. These can be sent directly to my colleague Nicola, and her email is nicola.hodgins@wales.org, and that's just on the screen there at the bottom. So yeah, please do send us your Risso's pictures. I'm really excited to see what photo ID catalogue that we build up for Orkney and the north coast of Scotland will bring. We're also interested in any pictures of bottlenose dolphins, and that's for quite an obscure reason. So on the west coast of Scotland, through our Risso's photo ID, we have documented a number of what we call hybrid individuals, and that's where there's been crossbreeding between Risso's dolphins and bottlenose dolphins. So we're really interested to see if this might be the case elsewhere in Scotland, where Risso's and bottlenose dolphins hang out. So if you do have any images of mixed species pods, please do let us know. So we do have a resident pod of bottlenose dolphins on the east coast of Scotland, of which there I think are around 190 individuals, and some of these guys might be seen around Orkney from time to time because they've been known to travel quite great distances. And this map just shows how far that resident Moray Firth bottlenose dolphin population do travel. They've been seen all the way around the Isle of Man, off the coast of Ireland and across in the Netherlands as well. So if you do think that you've seen a pod of dolphins that might be a mixed species pod of bottlenose hanging out with Risso's, we'd be really interested to hear about your sighting as well. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the other species that we can see around the coast of Orkney. So along with Risso's dolphins and occasional bottlenose dolphins, there's a couple of other exciting species that we can see from our coastline. So first up, we've got the Harbour Porpoise. and Harbour porpoise are resident to the UK, and there are lots of important habitats for harbour porpoises around the coast. And it can be really difficult to collect information on harbour porpoises because they are quite shy, so the more data that we can collect on these guys, the better. And that helps us understand where we're seeing them and how long we might be seeing them for. So porpoises are much smaller than Rizzo's and bottlenose dolphins. They're about 1.5 to 2 meters long, and they also show really different behaviours as well. So as I said, they're really shy creatures, and we wouldn't necessarily see them leaping out of the water. And the harbour porpoise has a really small triangular dorsal fin, which is about halfway down its back. And looking at the colour in the picture, harbour porpoises are also grey all over. But I think it's the movement and the surfacing pattern of harbour porpoises that is also very different to some of the dolphin species. So when they come up to the surface to breathe, they form a bit of a rolling motion. And some people have described it as, if you can imagine a bike wheel with a little triangle shape attached to the top, that's what a harbour porpoise's surfacing pattern looks like in the water. You often see them quite quickly and then they disappear, maybe 1 or 2 surfaces, and then they sometimes just disappear for good. But sometimes you do get a bit of a longer sighting, which is always really nice. If you see them close up enough, you can often hear a poof sound as they breathe out, and this is why they're also known as the puffing pig. So that's the harbour porpoise. This is a picture of a minke whale. Minke whales are migratory animals, and therefore we see them more often in the summer months around Scotland. And the minke whale is a baleen whale. When you see them surface, you often see a really long back and then a small hooked over dorsal fin about 2/3 of the way down the back. Now, minke whales are between 7 to 10 metres in size, and we wouldn't typically see their below. So if you see a whale that looks kind of like a minke whale with that shaped fin, but you see a lot of back and then a really big below, you're more likely to be watching something a little bit bigger, like possibly a fin whale or a sei whale. So minke whales, you wouldn't usually see the below. And thinking about their tail as well, the minke whale doesn't usually bring its tail fluke out of the water either. You usually sometimes see a bit of the tail stalk before they take a deeper dive. Now this is a common dolphin. Common dolphins are seen a bit more commonly in the summer months, and they're also more common on the west coast and the Northern Isles because they do quite like deep water. They're much smaller than bottlenose dolphins and Rizzo's dolphins, only 2 to 2.5 metres long. I think Rizzo's and bottlenose can grow up to like almost 4, just under 4 metres, so they're really quite robust and chunky, whereas the common dolphins are a lot more sleek and slender, and they don't have the big robust shape to them. So they've got also this long slender beak, and then you can see this hourglass pattern on their bodies as well, and that forms a distinct V shape below their dorsal fin as well. Now these are white-beaked dolphins. White-beaked dolphins are actually a subpolar species, and they prefer colder waters. So Scotland is actually in the most southern part of their habitat, their range. As water temperatures are changing as well, we're starting to see white-beaked dolphins further north and less so in the south of Scotland. So they only sometimes have a white beak, which is a little bit confusing. They don't always have this white beak, but they do have these white distinct white markings down the side of their bodies as well. We can also sometimes see humpback whales around the Northern Isles as well, and like I was talking about with the Rizzo's dolphins and being able to ID and recognise different individuals because of scars and nicks on their fins, we can do the same with humpback whales if we get a good picture of their tail fluke. So humpback whales are migratory, and they spend time in their feeding grounds up in the Arctic, and then they travel down to their breeding grounds in the Caribbean or Western Africa. And we see them here in Scotland when they're travelling to and from their feeding and breeding grounds. Now we're most likely to see them in the winter time and then towards the middle or end of summer, and that's them stopping off to feed on their way. So humpback whales, as well as minke whales, are baleen species, and this is a picture of a humpback whale lunge feeding. So this means that a baleen species means that they, instead of teeth, have baleen plates in their mouths, and they use these baleen plates to filter out their food. So they'll take a really big gulp of water and fish, and then they'll push all of the water out through these baleen plates that act like a sieve or a filter, and then they'll use their tongue to swallow all of the fish that's left over at the end. And humpback whales are much bigger than the minke whales as well. They're between 17 and 18 metres long, whereas the minke whale only goes up to around about 10 metres. And finally, a firm favourite, the orca, or sometimes people call them killer whales. So we do get orca around the coast of Orkney, and they're really easy to identify when there is a male in the pod. So this looks like it's either younger males or two females in this picture, but the older males have really tall dorsal fins. It's like a huge black sail in the water, and you can't really get them confused with any other species. They also have, they're usually black all over with a white eye patch, and then this white saddle patch behind their dorsal fin as well. And we get different types of orca, so there's different populations around the Northern Isles, and again they're also identifiable by individuals. So these white saddle patches and the different scars and rake marks on them, and then the shapes of the eye patches help us identify individuals. So when you see orca around Orkney, if you get a really clear picture, you can look up the Scottish killer whale photo ID catalogue and see if it's one of the individuals and see which pod it's from as well. And sometimes in the summer we're more likely to see orca around the coast of Orkney, because there's also pods that come down from Iceland to feed on the seal population. So there's maybe a couple more orcas around Scotland in the summer months, but they are spotted throughout the year. And I'm just sharing this final slide again in case you're interested in getting involved with Shorewatch and helping us to build up that long-term data set to help us protect the wonderful world of whales and dolphins around the coast of Orkney. So please do sign up to one of our training sessions or send me an email if you have any questions. And my email address is northernisles@shorewatch.org. And our next online training session is on Thursday the 2nd of September, but there will be more penciled in after that. So if you can't make it on Thursday the 2nd of September and you still want to come along, do just get in touch and we can put your name down to let you know when the next training session is after that. And thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and learned a little bit about the amazing marine wildlife we're so lucky to have around our coasts here in Scotland. Again, my name is Emma and I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions via email. Thank you.